to the Matt Laricy Project. This is a show about all things real estate, business, marketing, and entrepreneurship. Each show consists of myself, Matt Laricy, a member of my team, and a guest. This week, the Matt Laricy Group team member joining us is none other than Mickey Hobson. Mickey, how we doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. It is December during Christmas season, which is my personal favorite season. Now, you're not that big of a fan of Christmas season, is that
I'm
correct?
probably the biggest fan. I think I've watched at least 20 movies by now.
Last time I checked, I think you said that Santa was not real.
Never said that.
Okay, we'll see. And this week, who we have joining us is Alex Eesley, not Beasley, but Eesley. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and Alex, this episode is it's episode 8, called The Digital Life. Alex, we've known each other for, do you know how many years now?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, that's a good answer. I originally met Alex through her, at the time, I think you guys were only dating, but now you're married, obviously, with 2 kids.
Yep.
But playing ice hockey, and I, of course, was the better hockey player than Matt.
Questionable.
Actually, Matt's way better than me, but it's annoying. But Matt is also, what does Matt do for a living?
He works in healthcare.
He's in healthcare. So met Matt through hockey, and we started talking as well. And you being into marketing and digital entrepreneurship, we got to talking, and thus we've started working together.
Yes.
Alex, give us a little bit of background. Where did you first start working?
Sure. I've kind of always been in the startup world or the technology world. So first job out of college was a startup, made absolute dog shit money. It was terrible. I look back on it and laugh now. But I kind of went that route because I thought I could learn
What is
the
the
most.
definition of dog shit money?
I'm not even going to say. I won't say. But we look back and laugh about
Okay.
it. Like, startup money.
Okay.
First job out of college, they sell you on the dream. It's going to be the next Facebook. It's going to be huge. They give you equity, and then they don't pay you
You get
anything.
nothing, yeah.
Yeah, the dream. That's what I told Mickey when he came here from South Africa. I was like, Mickey, we have this dream to work.
Sold me short.
You gotta watch out for the sales guys. Yeah.
Okay, so what made you want to leave that and kind of did you go right from there to start your own company, or what made you kind of make a switch?
No. I bounced back and forth between startups and then regular corporate companies. I didn't necessarily want to leave my first startup, but basically was told to leave because they ran out of funding.
Okay.
So I think 4 days before Christmas, we walked in and they were like, P.S., this is the last day we can pay you guys.
Wow, so your boss definitely hated Christmas almost as much as
Yeah.
Mickey.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to set this tone of me hating Christmas.
Okay. No, Mickey's a huge Christmas believer. Did you kind of hate corporate America then, being kind of in the whole marketing scheme?
I wouldn't say I hated it. After that experience was a little bit traumatizing, being first job out of college, pretty young. So then I went back more to the corporate side. I didn't hate it, but I would say I always feel like at corporate jobs, 50% of the time you're just procrastinating or wasting time. 25% you're maybe playing a little politics, and then 25% you're actually working.
So in a given work 9 to 5, which is your typical corporate America, you're probably saying you're doing about 30 minutes of work.
Yeah, I don't know if the math quite works out there, but maybe a
That's
couple
kinda how it
hours.
worked out in my head. Okay.
Lunch.
Yeah. So, when was the moment you decided, hey, I'm going to start my own company and kind of branch off on my own?
It's kind of a long story. There was a lot going on, but I would say I always kind of knew I would start my own business. I was always bored at other jobs. I always had side things going on that I was kind of experimenting with, building websites, doing all that kind of stuff, which is how I learned a lot of what I know now.
Okay.
But when I actually decided to start my own business, it was kind of a crossroads. I was at another startup, and I knew it was kind of a risky one because they only had a family and friends around. But they were part of Techstars in Chicago, which is one of the most competitive accelerators in the world. So I thought they had pretty good odds.
And what is the Techstar?
Techstars Accelerator. So basically, they take startups in, they trade a small amount of equity for funding, and then you go through a whole program, and it's supposed to be really good for your company, et cetera. So anyways, I knew it was kind of risky. At the same time, my husband, Matt, and I were finishing grad school, and then I got pregnant. So I had to go tell my boss that I was expecting, and the day that I went in to tell her that, she told me that they had to let me go first.
Man, this is...
Oh, man, bad luck.
You got some really good luck here. Okay, fired
ran out
4
of
days
funding.
before Christmas, and then you get pregnant and you get fired.
Yeah. So
Man.
needless to say, I didn't tell her at that moment
Are
that I
you
was
sure
expecting.
you don't kind of feel cursed a little bit?
No,
Maybe
it's
we
just-
shouldn't be partnered up with this. You
It's
know
a
what I mean?
startup world.
Okay.
But needless to say, then I was unemployed and pregnant, which was kind of awkward. So I kind of had to decide, do I go for another startup? Then I could be like 6 months pregnant and unemployed again. Or do I go back to corporate and lie about being pregnant or not lie about being pregnant? I didn't want to do that.
Right.
And at the same time, my husband was considering to move out to the burbs. So I didn't want to get too stuck on anything in the city if we were going to move. And our last class we were in at the time was consulting. So that's kind of how it all came together.
Okay, so you started the company. What is the name of the company right now?
It's Eesley Consulting. It's the most creative name ever for a marketing company.
Your last name and then consultant.
Yeah, and that was on purpose. It's not because I'm not a creative person. It's because I just wanted to keep it super general because I don't know where it's going to go yet.
Okay, and so what do you kind of specialize in right now?
I'd like to say I do almost everything that falls in the digital marketing sphere. I don't do graphic design, don't do video, but pretty much everything else.
Okay.
I like doing a lot of SEO, paid, like Google Adwords, and social. That's kind of what I do a lot of. And strategy.
So what has been kind of like more, let's say, your biggest learning experience you've had since you've kind of started this?
Probably more like on the personal side. Like I'm naturally an introvert, and I kind of have to trick people into thinking. Like most people don't think that about me. Most people think I'm super outgoing, and I'm really not. So I think learning to kind of sell your services and act super confident when you're not has kind of been a big learning experience for me.
I think a lot of people in general though are kind of like that, and then we have to kind of come off as being kind of more of like outgoing than we are.
Yeah. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Mickey, that's a big thing I had to teach with
Yeah.
Mickey.
When I started, for sure.
Yeah, very introverted. So so you started this thing. Now you're pregnant. You start this company. As a woman starting a company, being pregnant, did you kind of feel like all the cards were kind of stacked against you?
I mean, I wouldn't say all the cards, but definitely some of the cards. I mean, I think part of it was the experience that I had in the corporate world slowly kind of takes a toll on you in terms of being a female in the workplace. There's just like a lot of mistreatment or comments or inappropriate stuff, and slowly it kind of wears down on you and your confidence. So I think that was one thing that a lot of women experience. But the other thing was being pregnant. I mean, you talk about just having a lower level of confidence as a woman, then add like walking into a meeting knocked up and trying to sell your new business. So that's a little, that's tough.
I can imagine it's kind of tough. And you kind of mentioned this earlier, which I've actually never thought about, but maybe, some of our listeners can kind of relate on that, is that you said that like maybe finding a job when you were pregnant, do you tell them or you do not tell them? Like why? And it's because we've never been in that position, obviously. Why would somebody kind of consider that?
So my thought process behind it was, so I was only 3 months. I wasn't showing yet. So and legally, you don't have to disclose it. You could be 8 months pregnant and just awkwardly not say anything about it, even though they obviously kind of know.
Okay.
But my thought process was, okay, if I tell them, it's really going to hinder my chances of getting a job, because who wants someone to start working for them when they know they're going to be leaving on appointments and potentially go on leave and do all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But if I didn't tell them, I felt like it was almost like I'd be starting a new work relationship off on a bad foot.
Right.
Like kind of tricking them or not having a super open, honest relationship, and I didn't want that either.
Yeah, so you kind of faulted for being pregnant, which is kind of, unfortunate because, I guess, my wife's obviously pregnant now too, but like it kind of sucks looking because like guys, we don't have to deal with that. If we're pregnant, we don't get affected by it. So it's kind of unfortunate that, like in a way, you know what I mean? Yeah. That like we're like we can't like somebody's not going to hire us because of it,
Right. Yep.
So that's kind of an unfortunate thing, but it's really motivating to hear that you kind of rallied through it. Started a company while pregnant, unemployed. You were moving to the suburbs at the time, right?
We were still in the city for probably like 8 months after I started the business. Yeah.
So considering a move, and then when did you kind of feel like you were kind of like onto something then, that like you'd started this and you're like, okay, I think I may have a little bit of traction on this?
Well, when I was planning, basically I started, from losing my job to a week later, I had an S-Corp, all the legal was done, had a website, which is nice being a marketing person because I can spin up a website and do what I need to do really fast.
Right.
So within that week, and my husband and I were kind of talking about it and planning, and he was super supportive. We kind of laid out like worst case, middle case, best case scenario in terms of monthly income for what we needed.
Right.
And then kind of also figured in, given X amount of timeline it takes to start a new business before maybe I get there.
Right.
And within the first month, I was already at the medium level. And now I'm triple what the best case was at that time. So I think from the beginning, I was really lucky. And maybe because I did have some of the cards stacked against me, it made me hustle harder. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it just kind of all worked out.
I think people naturally, when your back's against the wall, you're either going to, fight or flight, And the people who fight usually kind of reap the rewards a little bit more than the others. What type of businesses are you kind of servicing now then?
I don't really specialize in any type of business, what I've kind of figured out over the years, I used to feel like I needed an answer to that question. Like I had to specialize in something.
Yeah, like, and that's a big thing people ask. Like, which one do you like to work with?
So I used to feel really bad about not having answered that, and now I don't, because a lot of the most successful people I've talked to said that when they stay more general, it kind of protects them from different marketplaces or changes or technology or, stuff, any kind of changes. It kind of protects you doing more than one thing. But what I look for in clients are people that already kind of understand digital marketing and the need.
Yeah.
When we moved out to the burbs, I thought actually, to be totally honest, that it was going to be so easy. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a digital dead zone out there. Like they need this more than anybody.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, there's going to be so much work to do.
Yeah.
And when I got out there, I quickly realized they were really enthusiastic about it at first, and then they didn't understand it and they didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
So when we moved out there, I actually just kept getting clients in the city.
So do you think moving to the suburbs hurt or helped your business?
I don't think either. I mean, like you make it work. You got to do what you got to do. So I just kept getting clients in the city. But I joked, like I now have some clients out in the burbs, but I'm really specific about who I take on as a client now.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth my time to educate somebody. Like if you guys were selling a home, you wouldn't want to just grab a random person off the street, have to explain to them why they want to sell their home if they don't even want to sell their home, and then go through the process.
Right.
You want somebody that already wants to sell their home.
Right. And I kind of feel like, to me personally, I think a lot of things in the burbs, I kind of think it's a slower pace of a lifestyle.
Yeah,
and
it is.
It can be like people can kind of get like a little bit more set in their ways and be a little bit more content. I don't mean that in a bad way, but people kind of get a little bit more in cruise control. And when you introduce new ideas and new techniques, and of course, obviously extra, money, it could, in my mind, I think it would be a little bit tougher. Whereas people in the city, there's a little bit more energy. People are willing to try new things and see if they could fail, because I almost think like a lot of people are at that point in their life where they're like, hey, let's sink or swim right now,
Right.
So it's interesting to see that it hasn't really changed that much. Do you like working with businesses more in the city or in the burbs, or does it matter? And do you mostly only specialize in people that are local, or doing stuff throughout the country too?
No, I've done throughout the country. Like when we first moved out there, I used to joke that it'd be easier for me to get on the phone with somebody in California, never having met them, and get a new client than where we lived in the burbs. But now I think I do either. I think the flip side of the burbs is that it is a slower pace and people are a little bit behind in technology. But for the people that do want to take the step and move forward, they can see such a bigger return on what they're doing because there's less competition.
So when people take that step, what's the first step you tell people that like to advertise in? So it's a small business, or like we're thinking about getting into this. What's the first thing you usually recommend?
I usually recommend like a research or strategy first before just choosing something and spending money on it.
Got it.
So I usually look at like what's your strategy, where are your clients, do some competitive research, and a lot of it comes down to like SEO research or keyword research. I find is really helpful too.
Nice. So you're kind of helping these people do this stuff, and so you're in the burbs now. You have 2 kids, correct? You started this business. How are you able to kind of like manage and handle all of this on your plate?
Probably not very well.
Okay.
I mean, things are going well. Like my kids seem happy. My business is doing better than it ever has before. But I
on
like
paper,
to.
It's going well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to refer to our life as a hot mess express, like every day. Like
hot mess express. I like
you
that.
told me to get here at 9 a.m. today.
Yeah.
Normally, in my previous life, where I didn't have any responsibilities, I probably would have been here like 8:45, checked in early, whatever.
Yeah.
Instead, I got here at, I think my ETA was like 8:59.
8:57 is what you told me.
And I was pumping on the highway in the car on the way here.
Yeah.
So it was, hot mess express.
And for the record, I think it was about 9:10 by the time she got
that was
here.
because you made me move my car.
Okay.
I was actually
And that's
here.
the other thing. She's moved to the burbs now, and she doesn't know how to park in the city.
And
she was bitching about like all this traffic and what is all this?
I don't miss
all
the
cars?
traffic.
Like it was a little weird here. But so what advice would you kind of give like maybe another mom that's trying to start her own company and kind of branch off to this? Because I think that is I think a lot of listeners out there, whether they're a father or a mother, or they're in a job today and they want to break out of the mold, is there one thing that you could say that like I would definitely do because of this? Or
I would just say, as parents, I think men or women, starting your own business or having control of your life is one of the best ways to get to spend more time with your kids. I think because we live in a society where it's just like work, more, people are not spending as much time with their kids. And when I talk to people that are really successful and are looking back on their life, they say that was the one thing they regret, is not spending enough time with their kids when they're younger, because you can't get that back.
Yeah.
In terms of starting a business, I would say, for anyone, there's never really a right time. Like, look at me. I clearly had no previous planning, was pregnant. Like, I had not great pregnancies. I was super sick. remember the first client meeting I went into was at 1871 at the Merchandise Mart, and I threw up on the first floor of the Merchandise Mart right before I walked up, and then right afterwards too. But I got through it.
It's game day. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you ever seen the movie Cutting Edge? He used to throw up every time before he went out on the ice. Like, yeah, it's kind of like game day. You have to throw up to get ready. So, and talking about that, like, how about Matt? I know Matt really well. He's a good friend of mine. Is he super supportive with the business and everything like that?
Super supportive. And it kind of works for us, I think, because he has a more traditional, stable job than I. It gives me a little more freedom to be a little less traditional.
Are you mostly working at home then?
Yeah, I work completely at home.
Really?
Yeah.
And then meet clients on site every now and then?
Yeah, I don't honestly meet with a lot of clients anymore. It's kind of like right now for my life, I have a 6-month-old. It's just really a pain in the ass for me right now. So luckily where my business is right now, I can be a little more picky and choosy about who I take on.
Right.
In the beginning, I would run all over and meet people. And now I just kind of say, well, this is what the engagement's going to look like. You can either take it or leave it.
Right. So working at home, is there kind of certain time allotted at home that this is kid time, this is parent time, or does it just kind of work out, or how does it operate?
I would like to say yes, but no. I mean, when my kids go to their school program or whatever, I have solely work time, which is great because I need that.
Right.
But when they're home, it's just kind of a hot mess express.
Yeah.
And I explain it. I want them to know that I'm working.
Right.
I used to be worried a lot about my kids seeing me on my computer or my phone way too much because I work on social media. So it's not a good look as a parent to constantly have your phone in your hand. So I make sure and tell, my 6-month-old has no idea what's going on, but I make sure and tell our older daughter that I'm working and that's what I'm doing.
How old are your kids?
6 months and a little over 2 years.
Okay. And do you have any help with, or is it just you when you're at home?
It's just me, but we send them to a day program a couple days a week. So I get a couple full days of full concentration.
Do your kids ever ask you about the business at all? I know 6 months obviously is not, but
yeah.
the 2-year-old,
the younger one's not saying anything yet, so no.
I would, right? 6-month-olds, they don't talk, do they?
They don't talk yet. Then.
Okay.
At least not ours.
I didn't talk till I was 3 years old. That's a true story.
Now you're making up for it.
Yeah.
Nice. Don't shut up.
I actually was brought to a speech therapist when I was young because they thought something was wrong with me. Which we probably know there is, but that's a different story.
Wow.
But I'm talking about because I didn't talk, and they brought me there, and 3.5 is when I started talking. And my mom used to say that I never started talking, now I never shut the hell up. So
that makes sense.
That's what happens.
I would have to agree with her.
Yeah.
The older one, she will ask me what I'm doing, or she's really interested in my computer, but that's kind of as far as. And I just explain to her Dad goes to work somewhere else, and Mom works here.
Yeah, but that's good, though, that you're able to kind of have some time at home and be able to work from home. And, I think there's a lot of people that want to do that. And kind of talking about the computers and things like that, we obviously kind of love technology here. What's kind of a lot of technology that you're seeing? What's your favorite new technology you're seeing coming up right now?
I don't know if there's one specific new technology that I'm seeing that I love, but I tend to look more on the trends and what people are really interested in. So, I look at almost the psychological trends of things, which sounds weird, but
yeah.
I changed my major 10 times, and I was halfway through a psych major before I switched to this. So I like to plug that in sometimes. So I think right now we're becoming more and more of a voyeuristic society. We want to know what everyone's doing. And when you look at something like Instagram stories, we're just used to just seriously watching people do every mundane thing in their life.
Right.
So I think any technology that's going to push that further and get us more into other people's lives is what's going to hit next.
Don't you think it's a little weird? And I do this as well. So, I'm not, trying to be hypocritical at all. But it's you're at a moment and you're experiencing it. But instead of you personally experiencing it, you're automatically grabbing
Go straight to your
phone to record it. And you will never watch it again.
And then you miss it.
Yeah, but you're missing it, but everybody else is seeing it.
Yeah.
So don't
It's
you
totally
think it's kind of messed up?
Yeah. Or if you go anywhere where it's popular or something big's going on, now instead of people just experiencing it, everyone's just like this.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But
But now we get to see you getting shots yesterday. We would have missed that otherwise. And how would we have lived our lives?
My arm is a little sore, Actually, see, there, though, that's a good example.
That may have distracted you.
Yeah, so, I was filming the shots, and I am, probably more afraid of shots than your youngest daughter. But it distracted me from, not feeling as weird about it. So it's almost feel like you have somebody else with you when you're alone. And I think maybe it's making people feel a little bit, maybe less introverted, that they're able to kind of get out their spin house. But I do have a theory that I think in the future, people are not going to be comfortable talking in social settings anymore.
I think it's already happening.
Yeah, so glued to the technology and things. It's kind of crazy. So reverting back to the business aspect, why does somebody like maybe need social media? Like, do you feel this is maybe a very important thing for businesses these days?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's some select businesses that it doesn't matter for as much, depending on the industry or where your clients come from. But I like to describe kind of the digital world as your storefront online. Like if you're walking down a street and you saw a shitty looking storefront, you're not going to want to walk into that store. And it's the same thing. The first thing people do now is Google your business or Google your name. And if what comes up doesn't look good, they're probably going to move on.
I mean, I think, mention like the Google aspect. Like I say this all the time, and we're obviously in real estate. And there was times where a lot of, for us, we go on the MLS a lot. So like there'll be the agent and there'll only be their office line. And I need their cell phone line because nobody goes into the office most of the time in real estate. So I'll Google their name and literally nothing will come up. And I find that to be a big problem.
Isn't that kind of nerve-wracking?
Yeah, we're in sales. Right. So I think you should, when you Google somebody's name, the first 5 pages should be flooded with stuff. How can somebody help with that? To me, that's a big thing. Because for us, we watch how often people Google us, what type of stuff they're Googling when they Google us, what else do they search for? How would somebody start to make sure that they at least show up when they Google them?
In terms of SEO or social media?
Let's even say SEO. Just a simple, I plug in Mickey Hobson, his name comes up. How does that happen?
It all has to do with the number of links that you have associated with whatever you're talking about, and then the quality of those links.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of different really cool tools that figure that out for you.
Yeah.
But a lot of times what I start people with is an SEO audit, and that kind of grades everything that you currently have going on in your SEO world. And a lot of times it's very surprising. People don't really understand SEO still, and they're just really bad at it.
Can you explain what SEO is? Because I don't know what it is.
Sure. Search engine optimization. Okay. So when you type anything into Google and stuff comes up, all the organic results, which are non-paid for, are basically what you're trying to get. You want to be at the top because you want people to find you. So
because nobody searches on page
8. right. Yeah. No one's scrolling
page
through
8. Nobody goes to the 8th page.
Yeah. But essentially, it all has to do with, you got to have a strategy. A lot of it goes back to the keyword research, like I talked about. For instance, a lot of people will optimize their website or blog in what they think are the most popular keywords, and they're just guessing in their head. But oftentimes what you find when you do the keyword research is that that's not how people are actually searching for things. So that's one of my favorite projects to do with people because I love telling them that they're wrong.
Yeah, I would keyword research to me. Just I kind of blacked out for a minute there. I didn't know what the hell just happened.
Yeah, but just somebody like me, it's super exciting
and
fun. Yeah.
But it is, and I'll tell you, even one of the things that I started with, because when I started in 2006, the internet was just becoming a big must be on thing. Not that it didn't exist before then, but it was super starting to be really mainstream. Okay, and we're talking this is just post flip phone. Okay, so one of the things I did is I would. And it's free, is I would Google real estate, Chicago real estate, anything with real estate, and if they had the ability to create a profile, I would create a profile on it and update it as much as I could. So at least if somebody went on there, they would see me. And I think that's a big way to even start a quote-unquote SEO that's completely free that people don't even do, because usually when you Google real estate, the top websites that come up are Yelp, Realtor.com, Zillow, whatever. And I'll even go on those sites for people, and literally there's no picture, there's no cell phone, and I'm how is anybody going to find you?
Yeah.
So
directory listings are more an old school thing.
Right.
They worked better in the past. Things have gotten a little more complex now. If it's a good site like Zillow, which is a huge site, so it has a good quality score, then that could help you out a little bit. But just your random directory listings, some SEO people will sell you on that and say, well, I'll get you on 300 directories, and they don't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, totally. So how much do you think SEO plays in the part of websites? Do you think it's the end all be all that people should be still spending money on?
Yes. Because if you don't show up, then what's the point?
So
if someone's Googling you, that's how people find things these days, right? Whether it's on your phone or a computer, people are Googling stuff. That's how they find you. So if you're not showing up there, you don't exist.
What does it cost? Is there a certain cost for getting keywords involved?
No. There's not, you can't just buy a keyword. That's not how it works. There's a whole strategy. But
if you want to show up more, is it you pay more to show up more on Google?
Well, you would pay somebody to come up with a strategy for you and implement that strategy.
How have those strategies changed over time, let's say from 3 years ago to today?
I would say it's gone from kind of more of the old school is more gaming the system. So you used to be able to do things like keyword stuffing, which probably sounds like something from Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'm thinking about food right now.
But essentially, you would let's say you had a page on your website, you would put the keyword you wanted in 50 times. And back then, that maybe would have worked, and now it doesn't. So it's kind of, this always makes me think of Harry Potter, but it's black hat, white hat SEO, which is kind of weird.
Okay, so we're both huge Harry Potter fans.
I'm bigger than you, I think.
So it makes me think of a wizarding hat or something. But so black hat SEO is kind of that old school trying to trick the system.
Yeah.
And white hat SEO is actually just creating good content and doing the right things. So now these days, the search engines are so much smarter. They will actually negatively ding you for doing the stuff that you used to do.
So the way these search engines are able to ding you and stuff like this, is artificial intelligence that's able to figure this out, or how are these engines figuring this out?
I don't know. It's whatever happens at Google, which no one knows about.
Okay, so there's a man behind the glass, Wizard of Oz style, deciding on it.
Maybe.
What about Google AdWords? Is that kind of still effective? Are people still doing that?
Yes, it's definitely effective. I would say it's getting more and more effective. The ads just keep getting more complex. And I think what people have to remember is Google wants users to have a good experience because they want people to want to use Google.
Correct.
So they want to send people to an ad that they want. So what they're doing on the advertiser end is giving you more options to provide more information. And as an advertiser, we like that because it helps us show up more. It helps us find the right people. And as a user, they like that because it gives them more of a chance to determine whether they want to click on that ad or not.
So PPC, which is pay per click, was literally 04 to 06, all people talked about. Do people still use the PPC when they talk about Google AdWords, or is there different terminology people are using on that, or are there different strategies?
I mean, basically, there's a ton of different terminology people use, but it doesn't really matter. It's more of just what you're doing. I mean, Google AdWords is technically PPC.
So if you're starting a campaign, you want to do SEO and Google AdWords and stuff like that, what's a decent budget for somebody to get started?
When you do Google AdWords, I like to tell people you have to have kind of a decent budget to get started. You kind of have to pay to play there, as opposed to something if you were getting started with social media advertising on Facebook, you can do it really cheap. Google AdWords, I mean, I would hate to actually give a budget or number, but I would say at least you'd have to spend $1,000 a month or close to that to start seeing any kind of a return. Okay, so it's a decent investment, but of course, the internet is a pretty decently big thing, I'd say. So I guess it's kind of the old mentality that you kind of get what you pay for. You got to spend money to make money. And it all depends on your conversions, right? So how much your cost per conversion, your customer acquisition cost, how much does that cost you? And then it's either worth it or it's not worth it.
Is that a big thing that you look at as customer acquisition?
Yes.
Okay. Do you do that for clients as well?
Yes.
Okay. Because that's a big thing, is knowing. So for people who don't know, customer acquisition is the cost that you're spending to acquire a company a customer that you're going to close on. So this way you could know which strategies work best. And be able to...
And where you want to invest more of your budget. Yeah. The problem is a lot of people don't have the right data, and it's not accurate.
Right.
So you can try and get close, but that tends to be the problem, is kind of getting those right reporting systems in place, and yeah.
I think that's something that we personally struggle with, is getting the exact cost down.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just spend and you forget where it comes in. Tracking is big for people out there. So what, kind of going back and pivoting back to the social media aspect, we're talking about SEO, social media, all these things. Does somebody starting off, do they have to be on all the platforms, or is there one? And if there is one social media, which one would you recommend?
I think it depends on, what your goals are, where your clients are hanging out, and kind of what you plan on doing with social. But I like to generally say that you should choose 2 to 3 social media platforms to focus on and do really well versus trying to do all of them. It's not worth spending a ton of time on Twitter unless you're going to be on there every second of the day.
Do you think Twitter's still big? I mean, I personally never go on there.
I think it's big with some people, but I don't typically use it because it has such a high engagement rate that you have to keep up with that most small businesses or businesses can't handle it.
Yeah,
and the engagement rate is much lower. I think I just saw a stat that Instagram engagement rate was 84 times higher than on Twitter.
Yeah,
Is it just mostly Facebook and Instagram? Those are the 2 to go to.
Those are the ones that I use the most. I think Instagram is really where it's at, but you can't neglect Facebook just because so many people use it, and especially if you're on somewhat of an older clientele, that's where they're all hanging out.
So what about the younger clientele? Where are they heading to?
Depends how young you're talking. I mean, the people that are in high school right now are probably not even on Facebook. They might not even be on Instagram or they might have like a secret profile on Instagram, which is apparently a thing now. But they're on Snapchat.
Wait, what? A secret profile?
Yeah.
What,
so kids nowadays will have 2 profiles. One that their parents see. That's like their public one. They sometimes update. And then they'll have one that only their friends know with a weird name.
These kids, I kind of like these kids are thinking of everything these days. What about Snapchat? Like I kind of keep hearing like Snapchat's going to be big. And then we use it with each other at the office, but we don't like advertise on it. But like, I'm like, Snapchat sucks. We're not gonna use it anymore. And then like come out with some cool stuff. I'm like, it's actually kind of still pretty cool. Like, are people using it?
Snapchat is big. I think it's very much a younger generation that uses Snapchat. I don't personally use it a ton because I feel like once Instagram came out with stories, then I could do everything I wanted to do on Instagram versus going to 2 different platforms.
Yeah, that's kind of how I kind of feel like we'll post a moment on Instagram stories and then we have to like kind of like try to recreate that moment on Snapchat again. It kind of loses its luster.
It's just more efficient to use one, and Instagram kind of has it all right now.
What about like IGTV? Do you think that's like a threat to YouTube at all? I know that we're trying to break into it a little bit more, but like I don't personally watch it, but I know a lot of people do watch it. Do you feel it's going anywhere?
I don't think it's going anywhere fast. And even Instagram has commented on that, saying, I think they're trying to kind of roll back and say, well, it's a slow release. It takes a long user adoption. It's going to be a while. But really, there's just a lot of barriers. And really, what are you going to do on Instagram TV that you couldn't do on stories, especially because you can do live videos? I just don't think there's a ton of incentive. And for me, I would rather post something on stories or even as a live video because I know a user is going to get a notification about that versus having to port over into an entirely new place.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the video format. So they did that on purpose. It's a vertical video format. So what that means is you would have to literally take it like this.
Yeah.
And if you look at YouTube, video is traditionally horizontal.
Right.
That's just how it is. So like we can't take any of our videos, or we can import them into IGTV, but they're going to look like shit. Yeah. And they did that on purpose.
Right.
But I just don't think people are going for it yet.
I mean, to me, the reason why I'm going to use the word hate IGTV is that like, kind of like what you said, like I don't like. I feel like the average consumer, why Apple One is that like it's easy, you can pick it up and you use it. But like I'm in Instagram, I'm having a good time, and I'm looking at stories, and I gotta like click on this other thing, and I lose my spot of what I was just looking at, and I gotta go back, and I'm like, ugh. And then the quality of the video usually kind of sucks. And then like if I really want to watch something, it's usually on YouTube as well. So I'd rather just go to YouTube and kind of keep my thing there.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I don't see it going anywhere fast. Maybe they'll make some changes to it, or I don't know.
So what about YouTube? Like bringing that up, do you see YouTube like it's pretty much? I almost feel like it's taking out traditional cable.
I think it will.
Yeah, and I read.
I think they're already offering TV services. They aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, one of my favorite shows of all time, Cobra Kai. Shout out Cobra Kai.
Don't know it.
You don't know Cobra Kai?
TV person,
you never watched Karate? You ever seen Karate Kid? You never saw Karate Kid?
That's
right. She's only 29.
Oh, yeah.
She's a youngster. I don't like
80s kids. Okay, so for the listeners out there, Cobra Kai is what happens like 30 years later to the people in
He's the actual good guy from the Karate Kid.
Yeah. And like now the bad guy is like good. It's unbelievable. I would get a YouTube subscription solely for Cobra Kai. But anyways, I read something that says younger people are just watching YouTube and not watching like cable television anymore. How are businesses being able to target it? Because I know like we broke into it. Well, we're trying to break into it, getting more ads. Running ads on YouTube, have you seen these being effective for your customers at all or your clients at all?
Yeah, they're super effective. And I think part of the reason is you have to, when you're looking at any entity, you have to remember who owns it. So Google owns YouTube. Right. So, I mean, that kind of gives you an idea right there of how big it's going to continue to be.
And they got YouTube at a steal when they bought them. Like that was like a great buy.
And I think when you look at those big companies, you have to realize they're slowly going to start taking out everything that we hate. Like, who doesn't hate cable companies? They're going to be obsolete so fast because these other companies are going to. I think Facebook has TV now. They just came out with a new show.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but what about are businesses changing the way they advertise? Because like one of the things is that I think is that like YouTube right now is kind of like quote unquote cheaper to like run an ad on and stuff like that, but like you talk about, when these cable companies go down, I don't think they'll go down. I think they'll pivot and become like more like apps and subscription based, and you can watch what you want to watch. But like, all these big companies have huge deep pockets to now that the commercials that they used to spend millions of dollars on, they now have millions to spend elsewhere. Do you think that's going to affect small businesses? Because it'll be impossible to compete with the people with that type of pockets.
It may. I mean, I would just hope that with YouTube, with Google owning YouTube, that the targeting is going to continue to get more and more specific on there, and that will hopefully help smaller businesses.
So do you think like in the future they're going to try to like almost have like you could get kind of like really creepy with targeting?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the direction everything is going is more and more targeting.
So
except for Facebook, who just got rid of some really important targeting for real estate. So that was a bummer.
Well, I mean, I think all the targeting in general, they're trying to tighten the laws up a little bit because of, you could get really narrow on it. And maybe back it up a little bit. What is targeting for the, I don't think the regular person understands even what that means.
Sure. So targeting could mean anything. It's like any type of characteristic or demographic, anything about a person. When you're thinking of the type of client you want, you're thinking of what kind of targeting could I plug into this ad campaign so that my ad reaches them and you would hopefully get a better response. Like some examples for Facebook that there used to be for real estate and they recently took away were a characteristic called likely to move.
Right.
So that'd be pretty nice if you're a real estate agent to be able to click that and that's who you're targeting, and that's gone now.
Why do you think they're like trying to get rid of some of that stuff? Do you have any idea?
I think some of it has to do with just the legal side of it.
Okay.
Like now, even if you try and publish a real estate ad and it's targeting income levels, you can't do that either.
Really?
And I think I'm assuming it has to do with some kind of regulations and stuff. But there's kind of ways around it. But
like how?
Well, I don't know if I want to get into it. But
Maybe too much. Yeah. Wait. Yeah. She doesn't go to jail for this. Okay. So kind of going back to social media. What are some of the best ways to kind of engage with other people? Like, is video more bigger stories? Cool pictures. What do you think is working the best?
I think the more interactive, the better in terms of video. So it's kind of a hierarchy. I would say stories are better than just a static or just a regular video. I think regular video is better than an image. And part of the reason is the algorithms. So social media platforms want more video because you get better engagement rates and they get better engagement rates. So they're going to push videos up in an algorithm more than they would a picture.
Okay.
So not only will your viewers like watching a video, they're more likely to see it too.
Is there certain trends you're seeing that people are doing that are like kind of going to be like the next big thing? Because it looks like almost there's always like people start doing one thing, you kind of start seeing it, even like certain like fonts and stuff like that, and then it switches, and then like 2 months later it switches to something else. Is there anything that you feel is going to be like the next big thing that's happening?
I don't know about the next big thing, but I'd say right now what's hot or what people are doing is the stories, but then all of the different engagements you can do within the stories. Like some people that are just getting started in a story just know that you can like click it and publish it, and that's all they do.
Right.
But then when you see other stories that have all these different like emojis on them or different questions and polls, I think the questions and the polls are huge right now because you get huge amounts of engagement for them. And I think part of the reason is when you're on a story, it's so easy to click an answer to a poll, you're already on there, or to even reply, and it's almost private. So like if you're commenting on something on Facebook, the whole world's going to see what you're commenting, versus if you're DMing a brand on Instagram, it's kind of like a private interaction with them, which is cool.
Yeah, I love voting on the yes or no's, just because it's super easy.
Right.
So
it's quick and it's easy. So I think that's the trend we're going to keep seeing.
Is there any social platforms that are coming up in 2019 that you see is taking over, or is it just going to kind of stick there? Because you mentioned Google being this huge thing, yet their Google Plus has shut down.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, and it was never good. It never took off. And that's kind of what I think is going to happen with IGTV, is I don't think it's ever going to take off.
So, talking about like that too, like we didn't even mention like LinkedIn. Do you think LinkedIn's a powerful platform for people to advertise on?
I wouldn't say it's awesome in terms of advertising. I think it has its place in terms of that it's the only social network that has that kind of professional vibe and can be connections. I think it can be really powerful if you're in sales. A lot of people use that for leads or reaching out to people.
Yeah.
But for your typical small business, I don't think it's that amazing.
Okay.
And I don't think it's growing. Like it's not like Instagram's growing. It's getting bigger. It's offering more services. And I think LinkedIn's staying kind of stagnant.
Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn, you kind of see I feel like people go on there mostly just for jobs. Or to job switch.
Yeah.
And for us, I feel like it's good because you could kind of promote your brand and make your company look more attractive.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's just not, I wouldn't say like a cool new thing.
Yeah. So, with all this being said, we're heading into what we call the Fast Five, where the co-host, Mr. Mickey Hobson here, is going to ask you 5 questions. Mickey, you got these?
You ready?
Got these
I'm
ready?
What is the best piece of advice you ever received?
I think the best one I've heard recently is no matter what you do or say, a third of the people are going to love it, a third of people are going to hate it, and a third of the people are not going to give a shit. I think that's good for me because I care way too much what people think. So it's a good reminder to know that it doesn't really matter.
You know what? I always thought about that too when I gave speaking engagements and things like that. Is like half the people are like tuned out on their phone watching IGTV or something like that. But, so that's good advice.
Okay, next one. Do you love to win or hate to lose?
I hate to lose.
You hate to lose.
That's, again, the right answer. This is
that is
my
the
favorite
wrong.
question.
That's actually the wrong answer.
I don't think it is the wrong answer.
In
I
corporate
think it's
America,
absolutely
that's
the
the
right
wrong
answer.
answer.
Well, yeah, but
you and
corporate
Matt,
America, who
you and
cares?
Matt are the only ones who said that one.
Mickey
Yeah, but
said
maybe
he
it's
loves to win.
entrepreneurs that say that,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and
Yeah.
why do you love it or hate to lose?
I don't know. I think for me, I'm not that competitive of a person when it comes to like sports. You don't want to know my track record in that world. But when it comes to losing in terms of business or being creative, I hate the feeling of losing. It's almost like a shame thing.
So,
like I don't want that.
Wait, so were you a sore loser in the game thing?
No, I was just probably a loser.
Oh, okay.
Okay, who is your biggest hero?
I don't ever really have a big hero. That's a lot of pressure for one person. I tend to gravitate towards or admire people that kind of live their life authentically and do things maybe against the grain or follow their own path. I feel like I've followed a very traditional path, except for maybe opening my own business. But I don't know. I think it's cool when people just are who they are and don't really care what anyone thinks.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Teleport, but with other people.
Ooh.
So that I could like travel and not have to deal with the traveling
Who was
stuff.
the X-Men character who did that?
That was Nightcrawler that did that.
Nightcrawler, yeah.
I mean, there's a couple other guys, but the one that's mostly known as Nightcrawler. 2 guests ago, somebody also mentioned Nightcrawler.
Yeah. I watched Apocalypse recently.
Oh, that one's pretty bad.
I liked it.
We should get a point board of like which X-Men characters are mentioned more than others. So.
To be fair, I did not mention an X-Men character. I don't even know who those people are.
Well, I mean,
that's because
the X-Men characters are actually real people. Okay, but
what other superhero can teleport?
I mean, there's like lesser known guys that like you wouldn't know. You know.
Maybe from that TV show Heroes. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what makes you Chicago?
Okay, I feel like this question is stacked against me because I'm not from Chicago.
Yeah, where are you from?
I live in the burbs. I'm from Minnesota.
Yeah.
From Minnesota, and I really like to put ketchup on my hot dogs. So I feel like this is a tough question, but I think it's hustle. Like my husband Matt and I talk about sometimes whenever winter rolls around, we talk about moving to the South. And the second we step foot there, we're like, we can't do this. It's so slow. Right. So I think it's like the intensity of Chicago, the hustle of Chicago. I like that.
I think Matt would start killing people if he moved to the South.
We just went to Nashville for a weekend, and we were literally got off the plane in the airport, went to Starbucks, and he already was having a temper tantrum because he was like, the Starbucks is moving so slow, I can't handle it.
Matt's an intense guy for everybody out there. I love him to death. Yeah. It's one of his best qualities. So, okay, so where can people find you, and what do you want to plug?
I guess they could find me. My website's easelyconsulting.com. You can find me on social media. But
how do they spell Eesley, by the way?
Eesley. You spell it wrong, just so you know. In all of our communications, you have me saved as Easley, and I just don't correct you. But it's 2 E's. It's 2 E's. It's very unusual.
Yeah, it's just odd to see. So.
And I would like to say I used to have a great last name. It was just Reed. Super simple.
Yeah.
And now I got to deal with Eesley.
Yeah, Reed, R-E-A-D.
R-E-E-D. So you still would have been wrong either way.
There's too many E's. What's up with these E's? Easley, E-E, and then Reed, 2 E. Yeah, whatever. Okay. So.
Guess I like the double E.
All right. Make sure to subscribe to our next episode, subscribe to our podcast, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook. Thanks for listening to the Matt Laricy Project.